And so I'm finally getting to this next phase of the Ghostfacer Supernatural tribute car build with my 68 Impala. There are some compromises and creative decisions that are required when you're trying to make a screen tribute. For example, with the 68 Impala dash cluster, the style is rectangular, it has a long sweep on the speedometer, and in general you can see where it's moving towards that early 70s style. Whereas the 67 Impala had, in my opinion, a much sportier look with the traditional round gauges. This is the dash cluster that would be screen accurate for a Supernatural tribute. The next phase of my build will be to swap out the rectangular 68 dash cluster with a 1967. There are a number of changes that are going to have to be made. They are not going to be reversible. I'm going to have to make some modifications to the dash frame, as well as making some changes to the electrical harness. Modifying the dash, that's a non-reversible creative decision. I'm going to have to actually trim some of the dash material out. Some of the circuits are actually quite different in the 67 than it was in the 68. So I'll have to do that diagram study and make sure that all of the connectors are rerouted to the correct circuits. Also, the 67 dash cluster is grounded in a different manner than the 68. So that's going to be something that I'm going to have to modify as well. The 67 panel, there are no gauges. They're simply the idiot lights. When you're driving a 60-year-old car, you can't really rely on idiot lights. I'm going to install a set of utility gauges, the voltage, the oil, and the temperature. So that's a compromise because the Screen Accurate Tribute didn't have gauges in the car. These are the creative and functional compromises which I'll be documenting. Hope you guys stick with me. So here we go. So after removing the bezel and the instrument panel, I removed the bezel clips, and now it's time for me to do a rough test fit of the instrument bezel. So in test fitting this bezel, it looks like this top edge is going to have to drop down and go in a little bit further in order to screw into the dashboard frame. That means that these tabs, especially the two here on the end, are going to have to be trimmed down probably about 1/8 of an inch. And that means I'm going to have to trim these down, I believe, as well. So I'm going to go ahead and measure those out. I'm going to mark them. I'm going to use a small rotary tool to try to trim those down without ruining the tabs and creating a bigger problem. So I tried to trim these down as close as I could without compromising the original mounting holes. I don't know if that's going to work or not, and I can always weld in and recut a new lip if I need to, but I really prefer not to. Now I'm going to go ahead and test out, see if it sits in there or if I need to trim a little bit more. It looks like it's still a little high down here on the left, keeping this from sitting in there the way I'd like it to. So I may have to actually trim that down a little further than I had originally intended. It's going to wind up cutting that hole completely open. Fortunately, the tabs use these little clips to secure the mounting screws. So once this is seated onto the tab, it'll still secure it in place. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead now and trim that tab down just a little bit and see if I can't get the dash panel to sit a little bit better on this driver's side. Okay, so trimming that driver's side tab down is exactly what it needed. Now we have it situated to where the top edge lines up with the screw holes and the bottom lip is snugged right in on the tabs to run a screw through each of these to secure the bottom as well as the top. So now that I have a good test fit on the instrument panel itself, I'm going to test fit the bezel just to make sure that all the clearances are where they need to be. For the most part, it looks like the test fit works. from a clearance standpoint, now I just have to look at how these holes line up. And there's a part of this bezel that sticks out kind of prominently, and I'm gonna have to look at the original to see how that sits in there. I know that there's clearance there, so I may just have to find where I can clear these other secondary holes, which might mean a little bit of trimming on that bezel. And then I'll have to take a look at the actual bezel itself when it goes in. Okay, so the instrument panel has mounting tabs, and the holes for the mounting tabs do line up with the existing mounting holes in the dash frame. However, the mounting holes for the instrument bezel, the chromed piece that goes around, are partially blocked, so I may have to trim these mounting tabs out just a little bit for the bezel to screw in and be secured. So I'm going to have to give that some thought, how I'm going to do that. Hey everyone, real quick, I did have to make a change to the plan. Once I got involved in test fitting the instrument panel, I realized that I was going to have to do something a little bit more invasive. So I trimmed out the old tabs and I replaced them with fabricated replacement tabs that are located in a new location.
Left his little harness on him. Oh, hi. Sorry. Hi.
Okay, so now that I've completed the test fitting and modification to the dash frame, I've made a note of each of the mounting points and their locations, as well as an assessment of the bottom mounting rail. What I need to do now is fabricate a minimum of 2 new tabs and then install those onto the mounting rail. Once I have those tabs mounted, then I can do a final installation of the cluster itself. So it's a little too long, so I'm going to need to trim that back. More than I expected. Okay, so that should be the correct length on that. So this will sit cleanly right there on the mounting rail and provide enough behind the cluster mounting tab to screw it down securely. So I'm going to go ahead and trim the other replacement tab, mark their placement, drill the mounting holes, and epoxy and rivet them into place. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a quick center line on where that tab is located. Now that I have it marked, I'm going to go ahead and remove the bezel, drill the rivet holes, mix the epoxy, and then get these replacement tabs installed. All right, folks, I apologize for this really lousy camera angle. My camera mount just snapped off, and now I'm stuck without a... So in the meantime, I still have to get this work done. I'm going to go ahead and do the best I can. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to drill the pilot hole. Just a quick common sense note. Whenever you're drilling through a panel, don't forget to clear behind it. Make sure there's no electronics that you're going to destroy or any other part that you may not want drilled a hole into. Okay, now I'm going to drill the main hole. So go ahead and double check, make sure your rivet is going to fit, because once your epoxy is sitting there and everything is going, it's not the time to find out that all of a sudden that your rivet is not going to clear the hole. So make sure that your rivet also is going to be long enough to bind both pieces together. And in this case, that should be more than enough. Probably could get away with using a shorter one, but I don't want to take the risk of being in the middle of this whole thing and then having the rivet become the issue as the epoxy and everything is setting up. Now this one does have an electrical connection right beneath it, so I have to be very careful and not push too hard as this goes through. So I'm going to go ahead and mix the epoxy, apply it to the mounting frame, and then rivet on the replacement mounting tabs. Tomorrow I will sand it down, dress it up with a coat of buckskin paint, and the next step will be to refit the electrical harness with the correct bus connector. Then reconnect these wires to the harness so that it will align with the 67 instrument panel printed circuit board.